Shona. Arlene, thanks for being with us and sticking with us throughout the morning. Let's get into these papers. Arlene, you're going to start us off with pressure on the PM.
Yeah, so this story is covered in quite a lot of the papers alongside the Charlie Kirk assassination story, but this is The Guardian. The Guardian saying time is running out, MPs warned Starmer, and this is obviously off the back of a very turbulent couple of weeks for Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister. A series of MPs, we're told, said a challenge was likely if local elections went badly next May, and the problem, of course, is that there's a lack of an agreed replacement. However, in some of the papers we're seeing Andy Burnham being talked up.
Yeah,
very much.
And Arlene, as the only former leader of a party around the table, when this sort of thing starts to happen, I mean, how much does your sort of credibility, your integrity, the chances of you clinging on, how much does that just undercut?
Well, once you're a leader of a political party, you can be assured that your colleagues are all trying to take you out. That's one thing for sure about leading a party in politics. But yes, there is very much an end of days feeling going on now in Westminster around Sir Keir Starmer. And certainly the Peter Mandelson sacking on Thursday of this week really put the tin hat on it, as we would say in Northern Ireland.
Shona, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we've got Clive Lewis is the only one so far MP to...
He's a bit of a serial rebel, so I wasn't quite sure.
So he's gone public with his suggestion that a new leader is needed. But you've also got the anonymous MP saying, personally, I think the clock is ticking. It sometimes happens to people who are incredibly well-meaning, but as Arlene says, once you pass that tipping point, you can't recover.
Tricky times ahead. We'll see what the Sunday papers have to say, because I don't think that this story has finished yet. The Tories are really gunning for this, and I don't think for an urgent question next week. Anyway, let's move on to the FT, looking ahead to next week, actually, as they talk about the Trump state visit.
Yeah, so the sacking of Peter Mandelson kind of couldn't have come at a worse time because, as the FT reports, the US and UK are rushing to finalise deals on nuclear reactions, AI data centres and whisky ahead of a state visit by Donald Trump. And this tech partnership with OpenAI was described by Mandelson as his personal pride and joy. So obviously the hope will be that his sacking, which Donald Trump might not be very happy about, given the circumstances and his own links to Jeffrey Epstein, that will still go ahead. It mentions that Mandelson met Trump this week to discuss a deal to exempt Scotch whisky from a 10% tariff on UK exports. Our First Minister, John Swinney, was also there, and he insists that Mandelson being out the door should not threaten that. But Trump being very unpredictable, I'm not sure we can be sure that that's the case.
What's your read of that, and how much that will affect the Trump state visit? He is mercurial, but of course he probably doesn't want to talk about the Epstein stuff, so maybe he'll want to stay
I think he'll want to avoid it at all costs because, of course, the American press are very much on this issue with the president. I think that Trump and he obviously had struck up what may have seemed like a very strange relationship, given some of the comments Peter Mandelson made about President Trump before he became the US ambassador. But there's no doubt, and I mean, I've seen Peter Mandelson at work. He is very much an effective communicator. He is good at all of the economic piece, and that's why they will be trying very much to salvage something from this presidential visit. I see Rolls-Royce are being talked about in terms of the nuclear piece. They'll be wanting to look at small nuclear reactors and how that can be built upon in this deal. So, you know, there is serious work to be done, and it'll be interesting to see if that can still be done despite all of the sideshow that's going on. Well,
just a bit of news we've had this morning. Our City editor, Mark Kleinman, breaking the story that BlackRock, an American firm, are going to invest £500 million in data centres during the Trump visit. So that deal is going ahead. That's been announced. So as if, certainly for that, at least, business will continue on. We'll see what happens next week. All right. Let's move on to this now in the newspaper. And this is about former Prime Minister Theresa May speaking in the House of Lords yesterday about the assisted dying bill.
Yeah, so the headline is May says assisted dying bill is licensed to kill, which is pretty strong and inflammatory language. She actually said, I have a friend who calls it the licence to kill bill, but she's still getting that line out there for the headlines. And this is, of course, about the Lords discussing the private members' bill on assisted dying, which Arlene's hoping to contribute to on Friday.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You were in the House yesterday for...
I was in the House most of the day yesterday because it's a rule in the House of Lords that you have to be there if you're going to take part in the debate, that you need to be there, which I think is absolutely right. I thought Theresa May's speech yesterday, and I'm not a huge fan of Theresa May, was absolutely spot on. And she was very clear. You're only given 4 minutes as a backbench advisory speaking limit. So you've got a very short period of time to make the points. She made them very, very clearly, and I think has hit the jackpot in terms of all of the headlines around what she had to say. But there are real concerns about the vulnerable, the disabled, the elderly, feeling that they're becoming a burden and then taking the option of an early death. And there are real concerns about that. And she was very good at communicating that yesterday.
And in the interests of balance, Lord Charlie Faulkner was on the show with me yesterday, who was leading the bill through, and he says that this bill is as strong as it's ever been. So the debate will, of course, continue.
It will indeed.
As you say,
and of course, Kim Leadbeater, in responding to Theresa May, has also said that the bill would create a framework around assisted death rather than the lack of framework that there is at the moment. You know, acknowledging that a lot of things go on that are not actually scrutinised in the way that they might be under this new system.
Important that the debate is had properly and extensively, as it seems to be having now, right? We're actually sort of getting into the very detail of it, which is most important in such a critical issue. All right, let's move on to this. I can't just see which paper this is in, but it's a picture of Prince in the Telegraph. Prince Harry, thank you, Carl, in my ear, and a wounded Ukrainian soldier, I think, as Prince Harry made a surprise visit to Kyiv.
Yeah, this is the Telegraph, although The Guardian have this as an exclusive, so I'm not entirely sure how the Telegraph have got all, the Guardian's lines that Prince Harry said. They'll be maybe a little bit annoyed at that. So he's gone to Ukraine, and the headline says, brackets, with his wife's approval, which might sound like a kind of snarky line of editorialising, but actually Prince Harry said, I had to check with my wife and the British government to make sure it was OK in that order. So possibly doing nothing to put to rest the rumours about who is in charge in that relationship. So he's gone to Kyiv, and this is in the capacity of his role with the Invictus Games Foundation, and he was unveiling new initiative to support the rehabilitation of wounded service personnel. And obviously, sadly, you know, there is a great need for that now in Ukraine because of the Russian invasion and the impact of that. So this is part of his visit to the UK, where he did meet the King for a fairly brief private tea, and it seems like there's a bit of rehabilitation. I mean, it's unfortunate to use that word in the context of these injured soldiers, but a bit of image rehabilitation going on with Prince Harry here.
I think, in offence to the headline, my wife would have to say it was OK for me to go to Ukraine as well.
Yeah, that's perhaps not unreasonable that you would ask her first.
But to be fair, I don't think you'd say, I had to check with my wife and the British government. I think they would I think it's an incredible thing for him to say, actually, because it just underlines, as Shona says, that she is in control. And that's the way it is.
On the rehab bit, though, sorry to use that line again, but on the fact that you met with his father for tea and he's back out there, it seems that there's a rapprochement in the family, potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. He was here for UK charity events and he was out and about. But I'm pleased to see that he'd met his father, the King, because at the end of the day, it is important that you have those family relationships, and I was pleased. I just hope that he keeps the confidence that I'm sure the King has placed in him.
Let's hope, and we will see, I'm sure, because it will be out in the papers if nothing.
Yes, exactly.
Else. All right, we managed to get to it. I think I'm pleased about this. This is in the Sun newspaper, and it's about weight loss jabs. Shona, why don't you take us through the reporting and we'll talk about it?
Yeah, so, I mean, it says shock official report. I don't know that people would be that shocked. Fat jab linked to 1 death a week, which is quite a stark headline, but obviously you have to put this in context of the huge number of people who are using these weight loss injections and having, certainly on the face of it, great results, and obviously the huge positive impact on health of people managing to lose weight when they need to. So we're talking about a rise, the total number of fatalities, that there may be a connection to these drugs, rising from 82 in January to 106 in June. And it does say that this does not mean the injections, which it says are now used by up to 1.5 million Britons, which is wild to me.
I'm shocked at
it
that
says,
number.
I know,
Really?
I
am really shocked.
Well, a lot of people are getting them illegitimately because they're not even necessarily meeting the criteria.
Yeah.
I've heard that people are getting them from all sorts of places. So it says it does not mean the injections caused these deaths, only that they may have played a part. And this is a yellow card scheme, which is about raising flags so that we can look in the round at these cases and countries can compare.
Thanks for that clarification. Only 30 seconds, Arlene, but what do you make of all of this?
Well, I would not go next nor near these things, but I am very concerned about what we know, what are the side effects, and this story places a limelight on all of this, and I hope that we do more research into what's going to happen with all of
Not
this.
just research on ourselves. All right, Arlene Schöner, thank you so much for that good talk, and enjoy the rest of your Saturdays. Thanks for being with us. And stay with us, because we've got the rest of the day's news after this break.
Hear that whistle and that crunch